Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. It's a pleasure to welcome Hugh Acheson here today at Google New York. Hugh Acheson is the chef and partner of the Athens, Georgia restaurants 5 and 10, the National and Gosford Wine, and the Atlanta restaurant, Empire State South. He is a 4-time James Beard nominee for Best Chef Southeast and was named Best Chef by Food and Wine. Hugh competed in Bravo's Top Chef Masters Season 3, just the past season, and has just released his first cookbook, A New Turn in the South, Southern Flavors Reinvented for Your Kitchen. Please welcome Hugh Acheson.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, awesome.
So tell me, how does a guy from Canada end up becoming the poster child for
Lost
Southern
in
cooking?
the South.
Yeah. Yeah, how did you end up there, and then how did this happen?
When I was like 10, I lived there for 2 years. My stepfather was teaching at Emory, and then he was teaching at Clemson University in South Carolina. So we lived 2 years each place, and then I decided to go move back to Canada. But within that 4-year time frame, I kind of got exposed to the South and what it was, and at times I was bored and hitting my head against a wall at the sort of surrounding community. But other times you sort of revel in it, and you begin to see the food and everything that's happening and things that gel. And so learned a lot about food at a young age there. And then once I went back to Canada, it was just sort of immersion in French kitchens for after school and doing all these things and building some sort of a culinary reputation slowly but surely. And went off to university and dropped out of that in political philosophy. Good choice. And then
could have gotten you a job at Google, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right. So then they continue with that, and then finally moved down. And my wife is from the South, and we moved down to Athens, Georgia, so she could pursue her graduate degree. So yeah.
And then what sort of really drove the passion for Southern cooking? So you really have become.
Yeah.
You are one of the.
I'm a really big believer
there.
in, regardless of what your community is being immersed in it. And the South is very much a community. Athens, Georgia is very much a community. And to be immersed in that sort of agrarianism around that city is pretty amazing. There's so many farms right there. And I thought it'd be a waste of my time to be, not sort of infatuated with what was around us right there. So, because there's so much, and there's so much, Southern food is such a tome-like history, and other cultures don't really have, other geographical areas in the United States don't have that depth of history that Southern food has. And so if Southern food is this topic, it's my endless topic, and I can learn about it every day and just be infatuated with it. So. Yeah.
So was there one dish that, during your time when you were younger, living down in the South, or maybe as you got older, that really inspired you to become a chef?
It was probably more northern dishes at that point, because when I was pretty young in Canada, I was really into the food there at that time. But I was just working after school. I just happened to be working at really good restaurants, and sometimes we don't even notice where we are and what we're doing, and then 5 years later you look back and you're like, that restaurant I worked at was awesome. I wish I had been paying more attention, but I was 15. So there are plenty of examples like that where you learn, and the cuisine of Canada is not very deep in identifiable dishes when we talk about.
Yeah, what are you talking about when you talk about cuisine of Canada?
In that region, it's going to be
northern neighbors.
most famously poutine, and then tourtière and things like that. I mean, which is a pork pie, essentially ground meat pork pie, heavily seasoned. Apart from that, there's not much. But what they do have is, long before the co-optable terms of sustainable and local and artisan had been widely used, the mountain range between the mountain ranges of the Gatineaus and the Laurentian Mountains is this amazing bastion of food producers. So, and that was the food we were raised on. So, cooking in a French restaurant in Ottawa or Hull, Quebec, the guy who shows up at the back door to bring you venison is also bringing you shiitake mushrooms that he raised on his little logs outside. And then his wife Hélène brings these beautiful aged goat cheeses. And this is 1992. This is way before, it was cool to be that way.
Before CSAs and before farmers markets.
And
all that
before
kind of
artisan and organic really was a term that was co-opted by the Walmarts of the world.
Right.
So it was really interesting time to be immersed in food there and learning a lot. But there wasn't any sort of pomp and circumstance around the food. It was just that's what they ate.
Right.
So going shopping in Montreal, was totally different from going to the Kroger in the South. But I think that's changing too. But going shopping in Montreal when I was at university there, you grab your bags and you go up the street on Saint Laurent. You go to Quatre Frères for produce, and you go across the street and buy rye bread at Boulangerie Saint Laurent. And then you go around the corner to Saint Viateur Bagel, and then you buy smoked meat at Schwartz's by the pound, and you'd go and buy coffee at Vieux Europe, and go to the cheesemonger up the street. So it was just that very Europeanized idea of shopping. And so food was very much in the psyche of what we were doing all the time. And my apartment was always like a fun apartment to be at, because I was always the kid like cooking dinner parties when I was like 18. It's like, come on over.
That's not what we were doing when I was 18.
I mean,
Sounds way more fun.
We spent our fair share of time not wanting to leave the bars because it was so cold outside. But but there was just that sense of really cool community on the plateau in Montreal, and just where we lived. And that area's been really hip for food in the last 5 years. But it's always been hip, and they didn't even know it.
Right.
So, which, it's
sort of ahead of the trends.
The epitome of hipness.
Right.
They don't even know it. So.
Well, so you and I had a chance to meet a couple of weeks ago down in Atlanta, and I had this extraordinary meal. If any of you are ever in Atlanta or in Athens, Georgia, I assume too, definitely check out chefs' restaurants, because it was a pretty awesome meal.
Good.
And yeah, no, it was really delicious. I'm still dreaming about those little hot dogs with the bourbon mustard. That's pretty extraordinary. And we had a chance to chat a little bit about CSAs and sort of the resurgence of all of that, and kind of that trend, as it were, which I think seems like it's more here to stay, not really a trend anymore.
It's no longer a trend.
But what do you had a lot of opinions about that, how it's being done in the States, how it could be done better, and that kind of thing. And I would love if you could talk to us about that.
I think that I touch on this in the book, but I touch on it a lot in speeches I give, is that first, again, to reiterate, I'm a firm believer in community. The community is not just a matter of, community doesn't stop. It takes effort from all of us to make it go and be the cycle of economy and culture and sort of compassion within your community and understanding of different cultures and different economic echelons. And within that, I think the best way to look at food is to not to be a full locavore, because I think that's a sort of zealot standpoint of you want to take small steps towards goodness. But I think that we just need to invest in our community and buy locally as much as we can, and take sort of an inconvenient route. The convenient route is this sort of beige highway of Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and the easy shopping and all this. But if we take the time out of our day to sort of commit to understanding who we're buying from, the names of the people we're buying from, and all this, then it becomes a better source. So I'm just a big favorite. So everybody's like, well, is that sustainable? Well, local begets sustainable, which allows organic. But unfortunately, the only term on those which can't be co-optable is local. Because the other ones can just be grabbed by anyone to say, well, we're organic, and we bought into this idea. And though it's organic from Chile, and the carbon footprint and everything, and the social ramifications of buying that from there, as opposed to an apple from Ellijay, which is 45 minutes away from Athens. Why would you buy an apple from Chile? So it's just that idea and that consciousness that you go into. I want to get away from food being a commodity and food being a product into food being a relationship with your community. Right. So but I don't want to be I don't want to sound sort of airy-fairy about it either. I want it to be really clear that this is, it doesn't matter who you are. It's just an investment in the idea that, hey, Celia grew those beets, and this other couple raises my lambs and pork and beef at Riverview Farms, 45 minutes away. Right. It's just that idea and that understanding.
So do you source mostly locally for the restaurants?
We do. I mean, as much as we can, and we always have. But I'm really wary about sort of the badge of greenwise sort of restaurants and stuff like that, because I think it's been misused a lot in the past 5 years. So we never a litany of farms on our menu, or we try not to be. Where you go, Greendale Farms parsley with Newport Farms arugula, and it gets to be a little bit ridiculous after a while. So I want to make sure that people I think that there should be a natural tendency for great restaurants to always be buying local. It's just better.
As much as they can.
Right,
Certainly.
because they've developed the relationships with people and they can guide those farmers to growing what they want over the years, or saying to that cheesemonger, I want this style of cheese. Can you do this? Can you do an ashen layer pyramid for me for this event? And that's the relationship. And then it gets rid of the middlemen, and people can be paid more, and there's an economic viability to things, and that's. When we're talking about farming in the South, it's really hard. Everything has been stripped from farming. Every possible savings has been made with large farms. But as we go into more organics from tomatoes from Florida, which has been written a lot about lately in a book called like Tomatoland, the only thing that can be cinched is labor. So we end up fully exploiting a whole class of workers to get those tomatoes off the ground. But if I can pay the same price for the tomatoes without any middlemen, then Dan Miller, who grows a lot of my tomatoes in Athens, he can make a living doing that. Right. It's, as long as there aren't those other 10 hands taking a piece of the profit. So it's basically, community to me is ended up being having a pretty good understanding of where my dollar is going.
Right. So I think the idea of this is obviously very appealing to chefs and certainly to a lot of consumers and folks who can afford it, frankly, right? So if I can afford to go to my local green market living in New York, then I might make that decision. Although I'm certainly, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but I've certainly gone to the market and bought things that are sourced in from other places because I want a mango in February and they don't grow in February or whatever it is.
And I
love mangoes. So who doesn't want a mango? I'm Indian. I'm allowed a mango in February. It's growing somewhere, so it seems, But the point that I'm sort of getting at is that it's also kind of a luxury, arguably, unfortunately, a luxury to be able to eat that way.
But it shouldn't be.
So talk to us about that.
Well, it shouldn't be, because when we think about local ideas and seasonality, so if something is local and say it's collard greens right now, collard greens should be at their lowest price point in season, right? Locally. Yeah. So the price should be kept down. But there's always been a certain. It's like people are opening up organic farms and local farms in a lot of different areas, and they still want a price premium based on that, because they were, disgruntled investment bankers who went and think that they can still make the same type of wage. It's like the person who buys a vineyard in North Carolina.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
You open up a winery in North Carolina, having not great wine, but you're still charging $26 a bottle for it. Eventually, the novelty is going to wear off, and eventually, you're going to have not so many tourists who are willing to pay for your plonk. So I think that the new economic reality is having honest price points for the product of what it is. But at the end of the day, I never want to be supportive of that preciousness of the local farmers market. It should be what it once was, which was the place of abundance to sell stuff to everyone, regardless of class and income. The most forward-thinking group in sort of helping that argument is Wholesome Wave, which is actually based out of Connecticut. It was started by Michel Nichon. Michel Nichon was a chef here in the early 90s and late 80s at a restaurant called Heartbeat. It was in Midtown. Really health-conscious, really interesting restaurant. It wasn't vegan or vegetarian. It was just healthy. And a lot of it was a reaction by Michel and his family to one of his sons being diagnosed with diabetes. And so he started Wholesome Wave with a number of other people. Michael Batterberry, who was the lead editor-in-chief of Food Arts magazine, who passed away recently. Just a really amazing group of foodie, chef-driven people. So their initiative and their mandate is to get great food on the tables of the less fortunate, hopefully local food. Their biggest thing, this was brilliant, is they got corporate and tax dollars to match funds of food stamps and WIC dollars, so for lower income people. So if you bring $4 in WIC money to the farmer's market, it's worth $8. So they double the worth of it. So that means that bundle of beets is affordable to the population. Now the next big thing is they're doing a prescriptive vegetable program, much like a CSA, in delivering to lower income households boxes of vegetables. So if we can get these folks eating more vegetables, then we'll have an immediate impact on our locality. Kids pay attention in schools. They eat better. Diabetes rates go down. People are well fed. They pay attention. The money stays within the community. And that's kind of the key. As long as we don't have this colander of money leaching out to way far away of things that don't support our schools, don't provide local employment. I'm not saying we have to be navel-gazing and sort of insulate ourselves and no longer be worldly. I'm just saying that we need to make sure we're taking care of our community in every way possible, and eating is one of the major things we can do.
Well, so the theme of community has come up a lot in our discussions, and certainly it kind of threads through the book. And we also had a chance to talk a little bit about the idea of community and the community of the table.
Right.
So where there's a lot of communities building online through things like Google or various social networking tools, and that creates a wonderful type of community. But is there a way to bring people back to face-to-face conversation and community in this way? So there's the community in this room, there's a community out on YouTube, and those are wonderful extensions of community, but what about bringing people back to talking one-on-one in person and around the table and around food?
And I mean, that's such an age-old topic of saying, how can I get my family to sit down at the table and actually have dinner? And, we live in a world that you guys all work 70 hours a week, and your days of being at your apartment and you guys use your kitchen cabinets as like places where you store your clothes. So that's a different world. But we're always searching for that, and there's no real answer to having it. It's basically just like people who regularly come to one restaurant as a point of solace in their life, where it's their joining point with friends. Let's go there like we do every week and have a dinner on Sunday. To me, that's everybody's. I mentioned that I run community restaurants to people, to somebody the other day, and they were like, kind of like a socialist gathering place. I was like,
you're like, yes, that's what I mean.
What's wrong with you? So my guerrilla restaurants, planning the revolution. So it's. To me, I'd make it a point to try and sit down with my kids and have dinner a lot, and just because it's the calming point. It's just like we all group over food, and history always has, and food can provide that. It's more than sustenance. It's it's dorky, but it's that breaking of bread whole thing, and but it's important, and it's that one point in the day where we can all. Family meal is the most important thing of the day for us in restaurants.
Yeah,
it's the point where the dishwasher and the head maitre d' are sitting side by side, just conversing about what's going on. We kind of have a mandate at the restaurants that we're not allowed to talk about the restaurant as we're having staff meal, which is really important to me, because I just wanted to be talking about other things. We talk about work all the time, like you guys do. So to have the break of your cafeteria here is a wonderful thing, and I think it's very, very thought through on how that happens. We all have to eat, but if we can sit together and just talk about new ideas that aren't on the table and different ideas, good things come.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed. Well, so what was your inspiration for the book? And home cooking.
So I'm from Canada. I wanted to write the Interloper's Guide to Southern Food. No, it's just my vision of Southern food. So I approach things from a standpoint of not being jaded by my grandmother's collard greens. You talk to other Southern people and like, those aren't as good as my grandmother's. It's like, well, give me a chance. Did you try it? So, I came from French technique and background, and I can enter into this scenario with just a little different sort of viewpoint on it. Sometimes I'll read 10 years ago, I'd read chicken and dumplings and not even read the recipe and just be like, let's make something like that. Yeah. So I can sort of genesis a new idea around it. So I can replace the sort of leaden dumplings with beautiful pillowy gnocchi, and do a brine chicken breast on top of stewed chicken with beautiful clean vegetables around it, and sort of reinterpret and re-envision that food. Everybody's like, do you do comfort food? And I do comforting food. I don't want to be termed as comfort food. To me is grilled cheese with a little pile of ketchup. Don't ask. Yeah. It's what I was raised on. So it's a strange thing. But so I just wrote the book to kind of pinpoint for a home cook my idea of what it means to be living in community and being somebody that people look up to culinarily within that community. And my experience of providing a sort of a place that people are proud of and they talk about. and what that means to me. And then just the staples ideas of what I do at home when it comes to Southern food.
So do you have a favorite recipe in the book?
You know, there's lots of favorite recipes in the book because the recipes are also different. I love things like sweetbreads, and I love the Frogmore stew, which is a low country boil. I love some of the simple sides recipes. I love the beeton carrot salad, which is in the beginning. But all I want to do ever in a cookbook and ever at cooking classes and things like that is give people little bricks of knowledge in cooking, so then they can rearrange them into whatever they want. You guys have Lego everywhere. And to me, cooking's exactly like that. It's like little pieces of technique and understanding of food that you can put together in a gazillion different ways. Some people out there in food know how to cook like 3 recipes. And that's not really understanding like all the little bricks. Because what I want you to do is look at the recipe and go, yeah, but I could do this because that's in the market. Or I saw this at the farmer's market and that looked a lot better. You know, there weren't any carrots, but there were beautiful turnips. So I want you to have the wherewithal and the understanding to be like, ooh, doo, 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 and suddenly you've built the Taj Mahal, which this building is much bigger. So,
It's a big building.
It's a big building.
It is a big building.
Yeah, you could get lost in here.
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Often. Well, the opposite of big would be most of our kitchens, I think, in New York. So apart from shoe storage, they're also very just tiny to begin with. So are there recipes that you think work really well in a New York kitchen?
Well, I think that the key in season or even in winter, there's, right now is lettuce season. You know, you can probably reduce what you spend at restaurants by about $200 a week in New York if you just make a really good vinaigrette and have it in the door of your fridge. That's that cooling device. And then just to have some different vegetables and fun things like that that you can make into a really simple salad. That with a piece of bread and a great piece of cheese from your local deli or your local Whole Foods or whatever it is, wherever you're shopping, is a great meal. And so, you can save some time and effort and not going out to eat. Am I saying don't go out to eat as a restaurateur? I'm torn.
You're saying don't go out to eat in New York. You're saying come to Athens.
When you go to Athens
obviously.
and Atlanta, you have to eat out all the time
Right.
because you're traveling. So it's those type of things and staples. My kids are 7 and 9, and they are not, this makes them sound like the best kids in the world, but they like taking salads to school with little things of vinaigrette. So Clementine likes her little greens, lettuces with cucumber and cut tomatoes and pepperoncini. Kid's weird. And then Beatrice likes olives and cheese and salumi and lettuces in hers with a little Dijon vinaigrette. Like, I don't know where they came from, but trust me, they're 80% great and 20% like evil. But that's what kids are. But they're eating really well. So it's like if I can give them that type of skill set to take for the next 20 years and have that in college and stuff like that to A, eat economically, and B, actually be sustaining themselves in a really good way, then we taught well. So.
Well, so the restaurants, getting back to what sort of started this whole journey for you. How did the first one come to be? It was 5 and 10, right?
It was 5 and 10. I'd worked in Athens, Georgia for 2 years while married my wife to graduate work in art history there. And then we moved to San Francisco. Loved San Francisco. Adored it. My dad, when we were very young, we lived in Palo Alto. When I was 2, my dad was... I have very academic parents. They're university professors, and so back in the day when you could go away for 2 years and teach somewhere else, my dad used to teach at Stanford and then later on at Claremont Grad. So we were very young and in Palo Alto. We had a great pool. It was a really cool house. That house is probably worth like $10 billion now.
About that, I think, yeah.
And we had a great time. But then being in San Francisco on the second iteration was just like the time of food in San Francisco. It was the middle of the bubble. Things were really wealthy and fun. The only trouble with that sort of era in San Francisco was, as a young chef, it was virtually impossible to live there economically. San Francisco is the one city in the world that's so wonderful to visit. It is so rich and so poor at the same time. And there's this clamoring in the middle of people trying to figure out how to live. And it's hard. So after 2 years, and I worked at great restaurants out there and had a lot of fun, and it was arduous, but I learned a ton. It was just a really interesting time. Came back after I got a call from a friend who owned another restaurant in Athens, and she was like, well, do you want to come and open up and be a partner with this? And you would run the restaurant, and I'll sit at home and count money. So I did that, and the restaurants, people tell you it's about counting money. It's actually about counting pennies, because the margin in restaurants is tiny. Everybody's like, what's your margin? I'm like, 7-8%, and they're like, really? You work that hard for 7-8%? And it's true. I mean, and a lot of it has to be kept in the business because fridges break and whatever. Yeah. So I opened up 5 and 10 in 2000. I wanted to bring, and even then, I kept saying and reiterating it, I wanted to bring a community restaurant to a community I really enjoyed. But community restaurant to me meant being very wide spectrum. In San Francisco, you can have like bullet point precision of a style of restaurant. They do, in the $75 to $100 menu category, they do 6 courses with a fine burgundy list. I can't do that in Athens. It's 100,000 people, and I have to appeal to a lot of them all the time. So I wanted it pretty accessible, pretty price conscious, and have it be a place where people wanted to go once a year if they could barely afford it, and to save up and have their birthday there, because we're the only sort of moderately fine dining restaurant in the town. Or we'd be the cafeteria for people more economically endowed and could come and frequent our places. So it was a really good time to do that, and it latched on really well, and it did great, and it was a success in a gazillion ways, but never in profit margin. But that's okay, we make money.
And then what was the evolution to Empire State South?
So the second restaurant I did in Athens was called The National. And one of the things we're really good at is retaining people and providing great people a great place to work over the years, much like we see here. Yeah. And that's done in a number of ways. And it's done by compassion and understanding what people are doing every day, how hard they work for you, giving them a sense of ownership of their day-to-day routine. And basically, everybody's always like, well, you don't really have managers. You don't have a lot of rules. And I was like, yeah, I just want people to act their age and be professional and take pride in what they do. So I was the electrician and the plumber and the bottle washer and the chef. And I think that skill set in showing people that I was willing to do that every day and work 16 hours a day doing that made the other people really want to follow suit and do whatever it took to get that restaurant off the ground all the time. So I think that in that way, I had a guy who came, he was working in Washington, D.C. in politics, in some congressman's office. And he called me and he said, well, I'm from Athens, Georgia, but I live in D.C. right now. His name was Peter Dale. And he's like, I have an interest in cooking, but I've never cooked professionally. So I was like, well, come on down. If you like it, you can stick around. He worked for me for free for a year. And Peter later became the executive chef in my second restaurant called The National after working for me for 6 years. He's so quiet, he's calm, he's just thinking chef, he's well-traveled, he's really smart. And these are the type of people we revel in. Normally chefs are so brash and egotistical and just, they're, my main job in San Francisco at one restaurant, I kid you not, was like, this was laid out in front of me. It was like, your job is to make people cry. And that was my job.
That's my job too.
It was to make yeah.
I'm very good at it.
I see it in you.
I know, can you tell? Yeah.
But it was like me at 25 years old making 45-year-old men cry. You think that's good? Break it on the floor type of thing. I mean, it was insane. Finally, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is gross. And I'm not going to name the chef, but whatever. So I left that job saying, I don't want to be anybody's little soldier. I don't want to be an arse in this industry. I think there's a room for this industry to be smart and compassionate and caring and understanding and still do well economically and still be viable, not be some hippy-dippy restaurant of no merit that really, we can excel in our industry by changing the paradigm of how people are treated. Right. I'm really tired of people looking at restaurateurs and looking at employers such as myself being, your industry is full of exploiters, and therefore you must be an exploiter too. I want to make sure that we put a wedge between us and them and just say, we're not like that. We don't do that. We provide as well as we can for all of our people, and that's what we do. And we are going to help them and support them to the bitter end. So Peter took over and did the national. He's a partner there now. It's very Mediterranean. He's very, very well traveled kid. He's got a lot of family in Spain, and I've got a lot of family in the northern Africa, in Morocco, and then over into Syria. So he's really well traveled on food on that area. So it's very Mediterranean. From there, we opened up Empire State South in Atlanta. Everybody was always like, you need to open up in Atlanta. And it's a big city. I mean, it's not New York, but it's a big city. I mean, it's 5 million people, and it's an exciting place to be. We went into a neighborhood of Midtown Atlanta. It was once very hustle bustle. In the 60s, every person I meet with a beard who's 65 years old is like, I used to buy a lot of dope here. I'm like, okay, I don't really get it, but so it's an interesting area. It's genuinely at the center of the city, so it attracts from all sorts of neighborhoods and all sorts of angles, and we get a really wide range of people. It had a great landlord who benefited a lot from sale of a certain building to a certain large company. This one. My landlord is Jamestown Properties, who is used to own this building and sold it to y'all. And they've been great. They're awesome as a landlord. So we have a simpatico with a large group who is very giving of the idea of, we don't have the funds to build this out like you think it needs to be. Give us money. And it's a very simple relationship, and they give that to us. So we opened it up as initially a meat and three restaurant. So the old school idea of a meat and three is, I go to one called Peaches in Athens, Georgia, and you walk in, and the wonder about a meat and three is, you walk in, you're in lineup. And the lineup is, the municipal court judge is first in line. Not always first, sometimes he's last. There's no order to this. Second is the guy who collects your garbage. Third is the nurse at the local hospital, and there are 3 of them. And then there's me. And it's just this amazing array of different people. And it's $6 for lunch, and you line up, and they go, what do you want? And you pick fried chicken or a pork chop, and this is not food you should eat every day. You will die. Or whiting or something on Friday. There's always fish on Friday. And then you go, then you have collard greens and succotash and mashed potatoes and a piece of cornbread. And that's, you get to pick your 3.
Right.
I started this idea in fine dining. I was like, yeah, we'll do that. I didn't really do my history, though. There's another guy who's very famous, who I work with now on Top Chef, Tom Colicchio. Kraft initially was the same idea. You would pick red snapper. You could then pick it broiled, pan sauteed, fried, whatever. Then you would pick an array of 4 different sauces. Then you would pick which sides you wanted.
So you knocked him off.
Okay. A number of you guys deal with these options equations. My dad's an economist and a statistician. I'm not. Do you know how many choices there are in that? It's insane. So we'd get these orders in the first week. We're like, oh my. It'd be like so many different plate configurations that it was virtually impossible to keep up. So we changed it to, it's a meat and 3, but we've planned out your dish for you. You can change it if you really need to, and nobody really changes it. It went through a difficult 2 months at the beginning, but now that restaurant it's awesome. And it's fun,
awesome.
and it's beautifully designed, and has really done really, really well in a large city that is still seeking authenticity. Atlanta is this amazingly historically interesting city. It's got amazing array of people in it. It's got an amazing Black culture there that's empowered and artistic and beautiful, but still there's just this massive segregation that continues. And Empire State South has been this beautiful place, this beautiful natural meeting point for everybody in the city, just because of its locality, just because of its appeal to all these different people. So it's been really fun to be there. I'm hanging out with a guy at the bar. There's an artist who had a huge show at the High Museum just up the street from the restaurant named Radcliffe Bailey, who does a lot of art about being Black in the South and living, and they're beautiful, amazingly abstract and layered pieces. I mean, this guy's like renowned artist now. So if he can be sitting at the bar next to 2 secretaries from upstairs, and it's just, I seek that mix. I seek that diversity always in the restaurants that I run, because I don't want to be ostracized or ostracizing 2 different people. I want to be inclusive of everyone. So, and I think that's what the New South is all about. We've got this amazing array of artists and culturally interesting people and academics and scientists who are all choosing to be in the South now. We choose to be in Athens, Georgia, because we can go an hour and 50 minutes away and fly to New York and do what we need to do, or go away on a vacation or whatever. But the sense of society down there and the sense of historical merit that's there all the time is pretty profound. And it's a really good place to be. And that, mostly my culture and my community in Athens, it sort of makes us proud every day. You know, I can hang out with, Bertus Downs, who wrote the foreword in the book, who's the manager of REM, and we have Jim Fiskus and Susan Hay. Jim Fiskus, a very famous photographer whose name is a verb, and to Fiskusize a photo is to do this certain depth field. And he just lives in Athens. He's a friend of mine. And then there's, Susan Habel from Habel Construction, who's a textile designer. And all these people have chosen to live there. And Williamsburg's a great community too. The Lower East Side's a great community too. I'm not saying it's better, it's just an interesting, and it's my community.
Right.
So.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit before we get into Q&A. Top Chef. You were on Top Chef Masters. What was that like? It seems kind of crazy.
Top Chef Masters is the spin-off of Top Chef, where you're invited to be on the show if you're some household name chef. I realized that I was a household name within my household. And that was about it. So I had no idea why they were calling me. I was like, are you sure? Because I used to get the calls from Top Chef, but I was always like, it's a little risky to be on Top Chef, And it's because you're sequestered with all the other people. Right. You don't have your use of your cell phone. You can't use your computer, blah, blah, blah. So, and they're not, I wouldn't say encouraging, but, if so-and-so sleeps with so-and-so and so-and-so's fighting with so-and-so, this is a good thing for reality TV. Masters is a different story. It's, we live in our own hotel rooms. We can do whatever we want. There's a professionalism, and we've all made our careers already. It's good. It's all for charity. That's good, too. I could raise money for Wholesome Wave, Michel Nichon's group, and I was happy to do so. So I go down there and promptly get kicked off in the first episode. Poof, out, done. Then they call me up, and through some obscure moment in Top Chef history, I think it's happened once before in all the different series of the show, I got invited back because somebody dropped out. So we go back on and do really well in the show and go through. And I get known as pretty much the person who I am, which is this very sarcastic, very acerbic goofball to half of the world who likes me, and asshole to the other half that doesn't like me. And that's fine. My personality splits through. People quickly realize on national TV that I have one eyebrow. This is a big issue in America. I don't know why. Prompting me to make Monobrow Preservation Society t-shirts for the restaurants. But, I had fun on the show, and I think what I tried to do was, it's TV, and I wanted to make sure that people saw that I was having fun, right. That I do relish in what I do, that everything, and I do this at work too. There is an innate professionalism to what we do and to what you guys do, and you see that walking through these hallways. But you're having fun doing it, and I think people are so much more productive and so much more happy, and that is a big little circle right there. Right. If you're happy, you're productive. Clap your hands. So if we can encourage that, so I don't stop when I get on TV with that persona. That's who I am. Right. But everybody else was like serious and competitive and weird. And so it was fine. They're wonderful people, but it was a good experience, and I came out fine.
Who was a bigger pig than you expected on Top Chef? There must have been someone. Yeah, who was like a big eater that you wouldn't.
Oh, I mean, the little James Osland, the editor-in-chief of Saveur, that man can pack away some food. He dresses like he's a 14-year-old in Williamsburg, but he can get some food in those skinny jeans. So, and so then I went on Top Chef Just Desserts as a guest judge. I literally went into a sugar coma the first day. I went back to my hotel room and slept for 17 hours. My body was like, whoa. I don't eat many sweets. I was like, it was totally screwed up. So I did the next day, and I was fine. And then they, right after that show, one of the executives from Bravo came up to me, and she was like, or Magical Elves, the production team who works on Bravo, for Top Chef and was like, we really like your personality and we'd really like you to come on Top Chef as a judge. So, which was great, and it's a good timing, it's good for me, it's good for the book, it's good for the restaurants, and my kids can be like, my dad is that weirdo on TV. So
that's the new season
good.
that's debuting
and that's
in
the
like
new
a week.
chef, or a new show
The
of Top
Austin.
Chef 9, which is Texas. So it's Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and a bunch of other little places in Texas. And we had a great time. It was filmed in July. It was very, very hot there. And very
And July in
drought.
Texas.
But Texas is awesome. Austin is such a wonderful city. So, so we did that, and we're having fun with it. We still got a bunch of finale episodes to film, but it's been fun, and to this day you meet chefs in this world who are like, well, you do TV, you're not really a chef now. It's like, no, I do something that you were never offered to do. What do you want me to say? Sorry. So I don't know. I have a bad and good capacity to say exactly what I feel, and I'm still going to do it on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
okay,
like
so
it.
my last question before we open it up to the audience for questions is, this is a two-part question.
Okay.
How would you describe Padma Lakshmi?
Okay. That's 2 parts?
Oh, no, the second part is, do you like me better? I'm just teasing. You don't have to answer that because I already know
I'll
the
answer
answer.
that.
Okay, bring it on.
Padma's great. She is. She has built a amazing force in TV, and she's. She can do a lot of good in that world. So she has the cutest daughter, who
Even
was
met my
Krishna
daughter,
was
but
running
that's
around.
all right.
Yeah.
No
okay.
competition,
She
but-
has a cute daughter,
That's
not
correct.
the
That's
cute.
a more
right.
accurate statement,
Yes,
I'm sure.
Okay, that's good. No, she's awesome. She's great to work with, and is a lot of fun. And Tom's great. Tom is just one of these people who's so sort of gruffly serious in a teddy bear-like weird way. But I mean, he's the type of guy in my industry. I can ask questions of that guy for days on end and never get bored. I mean, he's been through this, and so I can take advice from him, much like you guys could. I don't know who you guys. You guys have dreamed up all this on your own, so you're fine. So but there's people I love to talk to in the industry, and Emeril Lagasse is one of the judges as well, and then Gail Simmons, who's proudly Canadian and is from Toronto but went to McGill. So it's a small world, but yeah, no, and I like you better.
Thank you. Good answer.
No.
Well, thank you for this,
Yeah.
and we'd love to open up to questions if anyone has any.
Everybody got it? Come on. I'll be nice.
So I guess you sort of mentioned this when you were talking about the meat and three. I'm from Virginia. I lived in DC for a long time, so I'm pretty familiar, I guess, with Southern food.
Yeah.
I was flipping through your book, and it looks wonderful, but everything is really heavy. Everything's really cooked. Everything's stewed. Everything's fried. How do you sort of square that with stuff you'd want to eat every day? And how does the Southern food tradition sort of fit into something that you could actually live with?
I think that it's everything in moderation, as Julia used to say. It is a rich sort of philosophy of food, but interspersed with that are going to be soups and salads that should take more of a prominence in a meal than people think, and on the table. But then you look at the use of no use of lard. And there is some use of bacon fat and things like that. But the food I do is generally much lighter than it appears to be. So I think that, but Southern food is based around pretty gut-sticking ideals. But I think that idea of Southern food takes into consideration the sort of Paula Deen mentality that Southern food began and ended at a certain time, and we need to show a reverence to that. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's ended yet. I believe that there's a sort of cultural impact of wonderful other communities moving into that area that are going to have change on that food. There's a health consciousness that happens slowly but surely and influences that food. I think it'll alter those dishes for the better good. I just think it's a slow road. But I think you're seeing it. And I think if you look closely at the recipes in the book, they're lighter than they appear. So.
What's your favorite thing to cook at home?
It depends on the day, but I mean, we love doing things like, I love making soups and things like that at home that I can then put up if I'm away for 3 days, and they can kind of continue eating that sort of stuff. But I'm a relative simpleton at home when it comes to cooking. You know, I'll cook a beautiful like dry-aged steak or something like that with simple sides, and that'll be dinner. So it's, you know, and that's what the kids like too. They're carnivores. I don't know, I trained them. So, but so it's pretty straightforward and simple food. But you know, I love to make grits and stuff at home too. Pretty simple stuff. Those are all the things that the kids eat like mad. So good for you.
Any other questions?
How do you make your macaroni and cheese?
The question was, how do you make your macaroni and cheese, just for the audio?
Pretty simply. I mean, I usually add leeks and things like that to it, and then just pretty traditional recipe outside of that. A simple flour roux with milk, and then Gruyere and Canadian cheddar. And then simple pasta, and then baked in the oven. Little garlicky breadcrumbs on top. Bubbly-licious.
Getting
Good.
very hungry.
Yeah, that's good.
Conversation is
Yeah.
making me hungry.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Chef.
Well, thanks for having us.